All right, I'll get started then. So I thought I'd start with an image of what one of our classrooms looks like. To give you a little bit of a background and a timeline of our project, it actually started in the mid-2000s with the Consortium for Language Teaching and Learning. We formed a small committee and we traveled among our member institutions to get a sense of how we could do more collaborative projects, particularly with respect to less commonly taught languages. That resulted in a pilot project in the 2011-12 academic year between 4 institutions where we shared just 2 languages, Romanian between Columbia and Penn, and then Dutch between Cornell and Yale. And based on that, we were approached by the Mellon Foundation and received a 2-year pilot grant to try to see how we could share these languages and work on the model. So we're now in the second part of the first phase, and we're in the process of writing a continuation grant, which we hope we will receive for the next 3 years of the project. Our model is different from many of the ones you may have heard about or seen. It's synchronous, completely synchronous and live, and we use high-definition video conferencing. So it's not an online course. We use the internet to transmit the video, but that's really about it. It's not online, it's not a MOOC, it's not any of the acronyms that you may have heard. It's a regular course. Students come to class. If the Yale students are involved, they come to class 5 days a week, and they are connected classroom to classroom to their peers at another institution. And so it's real time, as any regular classroom would be. It's also credit-bearing during the academic year, so the students can take these courses for the language required to fulfill the language requirement, for example, or for many other purposes. We also have a lot of graduate students. It's in addition to the video conferencing, it's a very multimodal environment. So we use many sources, also asynchronous sources as well, or resources as well. We have wikis. We use the course management system at our institutions. We use a web audio lab at Cornell. We've used Adobe Connect Pro iPads. We also use a Wacom tablet for various purposes. So we use many other tools in the process. I wanted to show you this image because the previous image you saw both of the classrooms. In this case, the instructor, this is the Tibetan instructor. Here are the 2 classrooms, but here is an interactive whiteboard that he uses to project the text that he works with in classical Tibetan. Our mission, I'll just read it. So the way we think about it, it's a collaborative model that uses innovative technology to share academic resources across institutional boundaries, enabling strategic partners to enrich existing curricula while respecting local institutional cultures. We purposely didn't put the word language in there, and I'll come to that. We see this as a model that can be used for other disciplines as well and for other purposes. And we also put the word strategic partners in there because one of I think the strength of the model is that it connects and allows collaboration between institutions that are well positioned together. And so when we're doing the kind of languages that we're teaching among Yale, Cornell, and Columbia, we are like-minded institutions with very similar goals and ambitions for what it is that we want to do with these languages. To give you a little bit of the background, it came out of a number of budgetary cutbacks, particularly on the federal level with respect to less commonly taught languages. And we were looking for a solution to maintain our very broad menu of less commonly taught languages. We had, among our institutions, over 100 languages across the institutions, but we didn't share most of those. And so we saw this as a way that we could share our strengths. And along the line, also within language teaching, we've thought a lot about combining the global and the local, and I'll come back to that in a moment, but that was one way to think about it. And we also wanted to maintain the quality. Language classrooms are highly interactive. They rely on the students' ability to communicate with each other, with the instructor playing more of a facilitative role, and so we really wanted to keep that high energy environment that a normal language classroom has. So our objectives were to expand or maintain course enrollments, for institutions that were affiliated to add more languages, but also to go deeper into the curriculum. A lot of the languages that we're talking about here are very small languages that are hardly ever taught and that have maybe one instructor per institution. And by combining curricula, we can now go deeper. Next year we'll start advanced level third-year courses in languages that are very difficult to maintain enrollments. And so we have more shared curricula in that sense. And we also saw this as a way to bring these instructors that are very isolated on their campuses together to share professional development opportunities and best practices. These are the lists of the languages that we have offered thus far. We now have 9. There are plans for a number more next year, including possibly Sinhala, Burmese, Kazakh, and a few other ones that are being discussed at the moment. So each year we not only add languages, but we also add levels. So this year we have beginning and intermediate, for example, in Bengali and Tamil. Next year we'll add an advanced level, a third-year course to that. So again, some of the benefits and challenges of the model: the quality is very high, it's reliable, it's very close to a regular classroom. We allow the teachers, just as what Bill was talking about, it's really driven by the teachers' pedagogy. It's not sort of constrained by the technology. We want to maintain and even promote more authenticity of interaction and learner autonomy. Some of the challenges have been, of course, it's expensive, but that is where the grant came in. We were able to outfit a number of rooms at each institution to do this. It has to be compatible. These systems have to speak to each other, but don't have to be exactly the same. The coordination is a challenge. We are very different types of institution with different cultures. We have different class times, we have different semester schedules, we have different language requirements, we have different numbers of hours per week that we require. So we had to negotiate a lot of that, and that's an ongoing challenge, but it's one that we have been able to very successfully, I think, overcome. We're running a parallel research project, and where we investigate what is happening with the instructors, what's happening with the students, what kind of outcomes are we seeing. And so when we're looking at some preliminary comments by the instructors, they're very positive, and they see it as a way that helps them transform their teaching. It helps their pedagogy become even more exciting and interactive. It's a very dynamic way of having a shared space across different institutions. They feel that they're very deeply engaged with the students, even deeper, some of them are saying, than in a regular classroom, because I think they feel that to reach out and connect these two rooms requires that. They also, of course, have very motivated students that bring interesting perspectives that might not necessarily be available locally. So we have an advanced Zulu course where a Michigan student and a Cornell student, they're both PhD students that are very deeply involved in study of South Africa, are taking part with Yale students and bringing very different experiences. So it's an interesting environment for our students as well. The balance it's difficult in the beginning because you have two classrooms. They tend to focus on the far end and neglect the students initially, but that's something that they get used to very quickly. And there is so much technology that it takes the instructors a little while to fully take advantage of everything. The interactive smartboard, for example, is a new toy that they all need to learn to deal with, and once they know what it can do, they like to do that. I was going to show you, if I can move over real quickly, it's a 1-minute video of what it looks like. This is an instructor at Columbia teaching classical Tibetan. Oops, I'm sorry.
Let's see. Now, did anybody get to verse 5?
This is Yale.
Okay.
And this is
well,
Columbia.
we got a little bit more than 10 minutes left. Let's see if we can't make a dent in verse 5. You want to read it for me, Anuka? Rupa Diwe Dokdrawa.
Okay, it's just a little sample. I'll get back to this. So there are no constraints. The audio, the microphones are built into the ceiling, and the students can just speak freely, real time. There's no lag, and they can speak to each other, hear each other, see each other, all going on at the same time. But the student comment is that we talk a lot about learner autonomy in the language classroom, making the students responsible for their own learning. But what we're seeing even more so in this environment is learning, what I've been calling learning control. The far end can take control over the camera angles of the sending institutions. So if they see something going on in that classroom, if it's a student giving a presentation or they want to hear the pronunciation, they can zoom in on a particular student. They can up the volume. So they're in control of what's happening, what they find important. Something is being written on a whiteboard, they can zoom in on that. And so it's not just even being autonomous, but it's also being in control of the learning. It's also very much, in some ways, driven, a lot of the content, because these are very less commonly taught languages, they feel that they have a say in what is going on in the classroom. There has been an interesting building of communities across the distant and the sending and the receiving institution. The students will meet each other in New York, have dinner together in a Romanian restaurant. And the other thing for languages is very important is we no longer do these canned, some of you may have been exposed to these horrible language learning pedagogies where you had to memorize dialogues and all of that. We know that we haven't done this for a long time. What we're searching for is authenticity. Well, you get it when you have students that are in Ithaca and you want to have a conversation about the weather. Well, there is a real conversation that can take place because you don't know what the weather is like in Ithaca. We've also had, one time there was an exhibit on Dutch culture at the museum at Cornell, and the students took iPads and gave a tour of that exhibit to the Yale students who could not physically be there. And that's real, authentic interaction. They can ask questions about something that really goes on at the same time. Some of the minor challenges, mostly it's not the technology, but again, some of the differences in schedules that come up. But again, we try to overcome those through other means of technology. Some of the implications that we're seeing, and I was hinting at that in the beginning, is that beyond seeing the less commonly taught languages as shared resources, there is a potential for replicability and scalability here. The replicability we're already seeing, there are other institutions that are doing similar things. Duke is partnering up with Virginia. Duke had come here to take a look at what we're doing, and they're now doing a similar model. Some of the small colleges in Connecticut are doing the same thing. I'm in conversation with some European institutions that are really interested in the model. But beyond that, in terms of the scalability, what we mean by that is that we see the potential for other shared curricula beyond languages. There might be small seminar courses that could benefit from having students involved that are interested in a specific discipline. Columbia is exploring this with a history graduate course next academic year, for example. And so for a small, highly interactive, highly specialized course, this might be an interesting model. We're seeing this also as a transforming of teaching practices by reimagining the classroom as a shared collaborative space, by combining the local and the global. Some examples are Columbia is connecting its classrooms to its global centers. So there are different ways that we can do that. We also see this at Yale. Other language instructors or more commonly taught languages are bringing in speakers, for example, in their classroom who are native speakers, who bring in cultural ideas into the classroom. So there are many potential uses of the technology beyond just the small sharing of languages. I wanted to end with the vision, which kind of tries to articulate that. So we see this as a model that allows us to share these resources across institutional boundaries, where we can share curricula and work with an exchange of knowledge regardless of where that knowledge is located.
Very, very interesting.
Thank you, Nelleke, for such a rich presentation, and it's the kind of thing, a wonderful example of the sort of thing that we can all learn from. I'm sure the people sitting in the room thinking about how they might be able to take advantage of some of the, or have to work through the same issues that Nelleke and her group have been working through. We are pretty much on time. Are there any questions that you would like to address to Nelleke, and we could get the mic to you? Lucas, you're close enough, maybe. Nips. Why don't you just come up here, Lucas?
Yeah, maybe it's closer. I just have a question about best practices. So have you and your team identified like the most effective way for doing this, whether it's an ongoing process, or do you sit down with all the faculty at the end of the semester and sort of do a debrief on how the semester went and then think about planning for next semester?
Well, we do both. So we have, at each institution, we have a coordinator who meets with the faculty to just deal with the issues. Most of the time it's not the technology, it's the pedagogy. I want to do this, how can I best do that? And we also have our technology support, people that think about pedagogical practice. So that's an ongoing thing. We started a series of online workshops, or technology-mediated workshops, video conferencing workshops on assessment this semester. They're meeting every Friday afternoon with Columbia and Cornell. I think we had, if I believe, how many? We had 32 at Columbia. So instructors from other languages came to this. It was intended for our instructors, but it was so popular that we had probably 30 or 40 instructors total.
That's a case of, we have a testing specialist at Yale, so that's the kind of resource that we can share with the other schools.
So we try to do specialized support, and then every year we have a multi-day workshop where we bring everyone together. We also allow the faculty to travel to their students at the far site to meet with the students and to also connect. So we had an instructor from Columbia give a talk at Yale about the Tibetan instructor gave a talk about his research to connect him to the academic community at the receiving institution.
Linda.
I was intrigued by the use of the iPad at Cornell for looking at the exhibition. Are there ideas of extending that idea so that instructors undoubtedly have friends and scholarly acquaintances at the home country, of imagining having iPad conversations on site with student groups, or looking at the cultural resources of the countries for whom the language is being taught?
That's a great idea. At the moment, it's something we've put into our plan to do more, explore potential pedagogical applications of iPad use. You just gave a great example. These are the sort of things we want to look at and play with and see what kind of potential pedagogical advantages we can have.
Anything else?